Welcome back, everybody. It is time for another edition of Silver and Black Today, an Odyssey Sports original podcast. Also heard on the radio in Las Vegas on KDON 101.5 FM. You can hear that Saturday nights at 10 p.m., just in time for party time. And then you can also hear it early morning Sunday on the Bet in Las Vegas. So thank you again for our Las Vegas audience for listening in. I am your host, Scott Branson, along with my co-host, my partner in all of this, the man I like to call my friend, the man people like to call Midtown Mo, Mr. Mo Moton, senior NFL writer at Bleacher Report. You can catch him also at sportsnot.com where he writes about the Raiders. And you definitely want to follow him on x.com. Oh, yes. At Mo Moton, Moemoton. I am at LV Gully, and the show is SNB Today. Mo, the veterans, they're there. They're in camp. They're rolling. And on Tuesday, we got note. The Raiders on Monday brought in a crew of players, free agents, right? We talked about this in the last couple of shows about the Raiders maybe needing some free agents. They go out. They brought in safety Jamal Adams, wide receiver Philip Dorsett II, defensive tackle Quentin Jefferson, guard Antonio Maffei, tackle Jalen McKenzie, Seth Williams, the wide receiver, and defensive back safety, really, JT Woods. They signed all of those guys except for Quentin Jefferson, of course, a former Pete Carroll player, and also the tackle Jalen McKenzie. They did not sign either. So those were the only two guys out of that out of that class of guys they brought in, free agents to sign. And we're going to get into Jamal Adams in a second, because I think that's obviously the biggest name, and a lot of Raider fans, I think, got big eyes when they think of Jamal Adams, the 6th pick overall by the New York Jets back in the day. But overall, the people they brought in, I just like this because every guy they brought in was a position where I think they need to be better or they have question marks, correct?
Correct. So we talked about in the weeks leading up to the first day of training camp, my main concerns, offensive line and secondary, right? So as you said, they didn't sign the offensive lineman, Jalen McKenzie.
Yeah, Jalen McKenzie.
And they did sign Jamal Adams. Now, Raider fans had a mixed reaction to Jamal Adams. One of our listeners, Rock Raider 585 said, "Isn't Jalen Adams as old as Pete Carroll?" And that made me laugh because, of course, he's being facetious and funny, but basically saying that Jalen Adams is an older addition. But I think that's the point of what the Raiders were trying to do there before training camp, just kind of add depth and players with experience to kind of push some of the young guys. So, what do you usually get at training camp, Scott? When you have a young team or a team that's rebuilding or reloading, whatever you want to call it, you usually want to pair young guys against veterans, because if the young guys then are able to be out the veterans, then you could say, okay, they earn that position. They have right to be on the field as a starter or in a prominent role. If they're not able to beat out the veterans, then you can count on the veterans to kind of step in and be that bridge gap in the meantime until those young guys are ready. So the signings from a positional organizational perspective made sense. Now we can get into the technicals in a bit, but the signings actually made sense considering what the Raiders' weaknesses were.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll get into the Jamal Adams piece here because I think the rest of those players, we'll see how it goes. Obviously, they signed another safety in JT Woods, but that's good. You're right about competition. The other thing here is, and it's funny, Rock Raider says that about Jamal Adams, who's 29.
Won't be there until October.
He hasn't. Yeah. So, I mean, but I understand why he says that because Jamal Adams, excuse me, called him Jalen. Jamal Adams, overall, if you look from 2020 to 2024, last season, he's played in just 39 regular season games out of 85 possible. That's basically 46%. He missed 46 games due to injury. And really, Mo, his injury-prone status over those 4 years has been really the major factor in how his career trajectory just fell off a cliff. I mean, he was released from the Seahawks last year. He hooks on with the Titans, gets hurt again. Then they get rid of him, and then the Lions signed him, and now the Raiders obviously signed him for a reunion with Pete Carroll. Now, If you look at Jamal Adams' social media, posts a lot of videos of him working out, says he's in the best shape of his life. We'll see. That's the problem with injury-prone guys. To me, this is a no-brainer, though, because there's no downside here. You're not on the hook for a ton of money. This is not the Jamal Adams of 5 years ago where you would have to pay a lot to get him. And if it works out and he's serviceable, or he pushes the rookie, or he wins the job, hey, anything can happen. Then it looks brilliant because here's a guy looking for probably his last big chance to hook on and have a career, if you will, or at least finish out his career on a strong note. So Mo, I like the signing. Now, are there other safeties out there that other fans and other people might favor? Perhaps younger guys who aren't as injury prone, all of that. But I like this because Pete Carroll knows this guy, and they could rekindle a little bit of that magic.
And this is basically what I said on social media, is that he knows the system. He played under Pete Carroll for 4 seasons in Seattle, I believe. 2 of those seasons were injury-riddled seasons. But in one of those seasons, interestingly enough, he had about 9.5 sacks, I believe. So if you think about what can Jamal Adams bring to the defense if he's healthy, he's obviously going to line up more so in the box.
Yeah.
Coverage is not his strong suit. But at his best, he can play downhill, supplement the run. So if you're worried about ball carriers going up the middle because Christian Wilkins is not there, or you don't have a defensive tackle to kind of fill in on the interior, Jamal Adams can fill that role, and he can also get after the quarterback and supplement your pass rush if Christian Wilkins is not there. So he kind of fills the Christian Wilkins role from the second level of the defense. Obviously, you don't want your safety having to come up and make a bunch of tackles, because that means your defensive line is allowing too many ball carriers to the second level. But as far as the pass rush is concerned, he could supplement the area as well. As I said, 9.5 sacks in 1 year in Seattle under Pete Carroll. So there's your Jamal Adams profile. Now, I'll say really quick, Scott, would I have preferred a better coverage safety? Yes, because I still think the Raiders need a central fielder there to force turnovers. The Raiders have struggled to force turnovers since 2016. I said this on Twitter last night or Tuesday night. But they need someone who's going to be that ball hawk on the back end, and they don't have that identifiable player yet. Jamal Adams is not that guy. But you also have to consider, Scott, while we may have wanted Justin Simmons or Jordan Whitehead, who's to say those players are interested in coming to the Raiders and signing with the Raiders? So the Raiders may have just picked the best of what was available to them.
Yeah. And then the rest of the signings, are there some guys here who could contribute? I mean, I look at Mafi, the guard, 6'3", 330 pounds, played at UCLA, of course, was with the Colts, the Patriots. He was all these guys were practice squad with their team last year, by the way. And Mafi made the jump, though. They activated him when the Colts needed him due to some injuries. So again, these are names. These are guys they bring into camp. They sign. They worked out, signed them, and we'll see. With again Jamal Adams being the guy that really is, I think, the marquee guy here, obviously. And if it works out, and I don't mind people being skeptical about it, Mo, because I'm skeptical about it from the perspective of the guy can't stay healthy. If he can get through camp, and at least to your point, and it was such a great point at the beginning of the show, if he can push these young guys and just be good competition for them, and maybe even make the team as a backup player, or a spot starter here and there, a player who can be in the rotation, great. Like it doesn't hurt you. And I just think that this idea, and some of the coverage nationally is really funny. Oh, Pete Carroll brings in another player. It's like 2. I mean, Geno Smith, there's like nobody. It's not like he brought the whole band back together, which was one of our concerns when we talked about Pete Carroll getting hired with the coaching staff, which he proved he did not do in most cases. So I like what Pete Carroll's doing here, giving the kid a chance and giving an opportunity for the Raiders to maybe hit it big with a guy who could have a late career. This is the kind of guy where, hey, man, he comes out and has a great year. I'm not talking all pro year, but he's going to be playing for a better contract. He's looking at 29 years old, and he's saying to himself, man, if I can get one more contract, then I'm in good shape. And that would benefit the Raiders because that means he would play well, even if it's for a year.
Think about this guy. I compare it to the Devin White signing, right? Both top 6 picks in their draft classes. Both played at a Pro Bowl level at one point in their careers. Both have lost their way Jamal Adams more so because of injuries. Devin White losing his job in Tampa Bay didn't hang on long in Philadelphia or Houston. But these are guys who were top picks in their draft classes. And what do we always say? Teams don't quickly give up on guys who were top picks in their draft classes, especially if they're under 30. Now, Jamal Adams won't be 30 until October. But as you said, they're both probably looking at an opportunity to potentially extend their careers as starters. And if they could stay healthy and stay in the rotation, they can definitely do that. It's one of those signings where, as you said, doesn't hurt you any. And right. if it hits, it hits. Now you have a veteran who has a ton of experience, starting experience, filling in at a position that was once looked at as a weakness for the Raiders. Now the linebacker position can now be looked at as maybe a stronger position for the Raiders because Jamal Adams is basically a hybrid safety linebacker. He lines up mostly in the box, right? So he can be looked at as a linebacker as well. So if you're looking at the Raiders from a bright side, positive note, if you're looking at the Raiders linebacker position now, you got Jermaine Pratt, you got Devin White, you got Landon Roberts, you got Jamal Adams, who can be a linebacker. You got Liam Eichenberg, who, developed Liam Eichenberg. Liam Eichenberg plays for the Dolphins. Tommy Eichenberg plays for the Las Vegas Raiders. He could develop into something, who knows. You got Amari Gaynor, who made the roster last year as an undrafted free agent. So the Raiders have some good parts at the linebacker position now. Again, I'm still worried about having a covered safety back there because if Isaiah Pola-Mao can't be that center fielder, they're going to need a guy to force turnovers back there.
Yes, and I'm glad you made an error with a name because I'm usually the elder statesman here who makes those errors. So it's good to see that Mo's actually human sometimes with the names. No, but seriously, I think yeah, that is true. And again, I'm glad to see that when the Raiders are making, and maybe I'm just playing into my own bias here. It just seems like when the Raiders are making moves now, you don't look at any of them and say, what? Right? Like now, again, a lot of these guys they signed for camp are practice squad guys. So they're camp guys. But Jamal Adams sticks out. Now, I still am waiting, and I think maybe we'll see this week, maybe by the time that this show is even heard by our audience, that they're going to go get another defensive tackle. They have to do that, I think. And obviously they brought in Jefferson. Didn't work out, at least at the time of the recording of the show. But I still think that they'll be active, Mo, in that. We got about a minute left here before we hit the break. You agree with that from a defensive tackle perspective? And who you betting on that they bring in?
Absolutely, simply because Pete Carroll said that Christian Wilkins' return remains uncertain, though there was a video surfacing of him without his walking boots. So he's still a ways away from getting back. But I would guess Quentin Jefferson gets done pretty soon. Quentin Jefferson, former Raider, played with the Raiders recently.
Yes.
And knows, as you said, Pete Carroll's system. So why not add him to that rotation?
Yeah, it doesn't make, again, it makes sense. It's not like it would be a crazy move to say, why are you signing him? No. And I like that. That gives me a lot of confidence. And if I'm a fan out there, in John Spytek and in Pete Carroll. So good stuff. All right, we're going to step aside for our first break. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about some of these position battles to watch. Mo wrote about this up on Sportsnot recently. We're going to talk a little bit about some of those positions. Mo mentioned linebacker already. He mentioned defensive tackle. We talked about safety. What about cornerback? What about wide receiver? We'll get into some of that when we come back here on Silver and Black today at Odyssey Sports Original Podcast, heard on the radio in Las Vegas on 101.5 KDON and 98.5 The Bet. We're coming back right after this. Welcome back, everybody, to segment 2 of Silver and Black today, an Odyssey Sports Original Podcast covering your Las Vegas Raiders. Yes, it's football season. Camp is in. The vets are in. Everybody. It's a party, folks. Everybody's in the building. Everybody's getting ready to play some football for you, Raider Nation. Absolutely. By the way, shout out to Raider Nation for all you guys. The optimism I'm feeling from almost everybody. We hear some of that in the calls. By the way, third segment, we're going to have phone calls. If you want to be part of the show, leave your message for our next show. 702-900-7869 is the number. Shout out to all the podcast audience, the YouTube audience who watches us, and also our audience in Las Vegas, in beautiful Clark County, Nevada on 101.5 KDON, and of course the Bet HD2 in Las Vegas. So thanks for being with us. Us is Mo Moten, senior NFL writer at Bleacher Report. I'm Scott Branson. We are your hosts. We are your guides. We are the folks that lead you to the water. You're the camel looking for the water. You might not find it. We'll help you get there. We promise. All right. back talking Raider football in camp. Mo, you wrote a piece up on Sports Not, and this is something that I wanted to talk about because you talked a little bit about it with the safeties. But when we look at another, I think, big position battle for the Raiders that we gotta see something come out of camp here in the next few weeks is at cornerback, right? So you look at what the Raiders are doing there. They signed fifth-year veteran Eric Stokes. We've heard a lot about third rounder Darian Porter in the mini camps and so on. But then you also have Jacorian Bennett, of course, a guy that we've liked all along, has had obviously some injuries and some struggles. When you look at this position group, especially, I know we focused on this during the offseason, so I want to remind folks in this division, in the AFC West, with the gunslingers you have in this division, with the teams and the offenses you have, look, cornerback is an important position always. But in this division, especially where the Raiders need to make progress this year, it's important. And when you look at this group, talk about the importance of tightening this group up, especially with Christian Wilkins out, at least for the foreseeable future, and what it means for them and who you like to maybe emerge here.
So it's a relatively young, inexperienced group. Eric Stokes is the elder statesman of the group. As you said, fifth season, spent 4 years with Green Bay. Injury riddled 2022 and 2023. He is competing for a starting job right now. I still think the Raiders should bring in another cornerback. As I talked about in the first segment, they need someone who's going to force those turnovers. But we'll talk about the guys they have now. Right? You talked about Darian Porter. Pete Carroll praised him on Tuesday. I think he's going to wind up starting because his upside is going to be too intriguing for them to bring him along as a backup. I think Pete Carroll sees a lot of Richard Sherman in him. I'd say he's going to be Richard Sherman, a Richard Sherman level cornerback. So I just want to temper expectations, but I think the skill set is there. We talked about it before. Former wide receiver transition to cornerback. Maybe he's the guy that's going to force a turnover, is having those wide receiver hands, now playing the cornerback position. I think he's going to start. The intrigue is there. I really like Darian Porter as a start. Again, he was in my final mock draft for the Raiders because I think he was the perfect cornerback for a Pete Carroll defense. Now, the other side gets a little murky. There's Jacorian Bennett coming off of a season where he played 10 games, started in 7, played well, allowed a pass rating of 67.7, which is really good because you want to be under 90 to be a really good cornerback. He was way under that. Now he's got to stay healthy. And I want to see some turnovers. Didn't have the turnovers last year. But I think he has enough time to reclaim that starting role, even though he was practicing with the second team defense through the spring. So he's coming off of a torn labrum. Should be 100% healthy for training camp. I think he's going to outdo or outshine Eric Stokes to get that other starting job. So I see it, Jacorian Bennett on one side, Darian Porter on the other side at cornerback. And then as for right now, Jeremy Chin in the slot.
What do we know, Mo, about the history of Pete Carroll with rookies and starting? Because I understand it's Patrick Graham's defense, right? But we know Pete Carroll's going to be all over that too. Do we know a history? Is he a guy who's gonna take a chance on a rookie? I mean, listen, if the guy outplays Stokes, fine. I mean, if it's evident, you got to do that. But if it's neck and neck, is Pete Carroll a guy who goes with veterans, or is he open to that?
First, I think most teams do this. If you have an older veteran and a rookie who are neck and neck and very close, you go with the rookie, the younger guy, because the upside is much greater, right? If he starts right away and works through his issues, then you have a much better player, usually on a cheaper deal. In this case, I think it works in Darian Porter's favor because the most recent example of Pete Carroll starting his rookie cornerback, Reek Woolen. Reek Woolen was a Pro Bowl rookie. And people were having a debate, did he have a better rookie year in 2022 than Sauce Gardner? And if you look at the numbers, and I just did an article on this, but Reek Woolen's numbers were slightly better than Sauce Gardner's in a lot of metrics, a lot of advanced metrics.
Yes.
And he was a 5th rounder coming out. And he's one of those long cornerbacks, long athletic quarterbacks, still playing at a high level, by the way, that Pete Carroll started, and he was a day 3 pick, I believe the 5th round. So Darian Porter, a 3rd round pick, not out of the realm for him to start right away if Reek Woolen went out there and balled out as a 5th rounder.
Yeah, and I had a conversation in direct message with some folks about Stokes, right? Because a lot of people are telling me, hey, this guy's not bad. Look at But his problem has been what we've seen with Jacorian Bennett, right? Which is availability. And I think Stokes, again, we talked about Jamal Adams being signed in the first segment. That's the issue with Stokes. This is why he's a good player. He's just not been able to stay on the field.
Hasn't been able to stay on the field and not enough game-changing plays.
Yes.
So what have I harped on for the past 20, 25 minutes is that the Raiders need a game changer in the secondary. Not just a guy who's going to start and be solid. They need some turnovers back there.
Absolutely.
Because you can't always rely on trying to go 3 and out. You need to give the ball back to your offense to give your offense more opportunities to score points, and that comes with turnovers. They need a guy that can identify, say, if we're third and 8 deep in our own territory, and we want to keep points off the board. We don't even want to give up a field goal. We need a turnover. Who's that guy that's going to step up and make a big play? That's what they need in the secondary.
Yes. Speaking of making big plays, you want your quarterback to make big plays. Of course, Geno Smith is going to be the guy, knock on wood. But the guards in front of him, when you look at the offensive line, everybody's still concerned with the offensive line. And Mo, we've talked about, and you've been at the very forefront when they signed Alex Kappa away from the Bengals. He's the front runner to lead the role of right guard there. A lot of people negative on that because, well, he didn't do this in Cincinnati. There's a lot of things. You got to look at the situation. That's the one thing I would say because, look, Raider fans don't follow the Bengals. Why would they? I wouldn't follow a team if it's not my team. But if you look into the situation there and what unfolded in Cincinnati, you understand that, yeah, was it his time? Was it his fault? Sure, some of the play there, but also the team dynamic was interesting. But if you look at Kappa, and you mentioned this in your story, he allowed 51 pressures, 8 sacks while on the field for 774 pass blocking snaps. Okay, now if he continues that kind of performance with the Raiders, I don't think he makes it very long. But again, when you look at the situation up front with there's not a better option there, is there, Mo?
It's debatable because the Raiders, I think they should fully evaluate the guard position rather than I don't think they're going to handicap him to start a job, but he is the front runner because he's been starting. But one can make the argument that Dylan Parham may be a better option at right guard because Dylan Parham, his first 2 years with the Raiders, played mostly left guard. Last year, while still average, I think he was better at right guard than left guard. So,
good question.
Do you want to start Dylan Parham at right guard? He has the motivation going into a contract year. He's going to be a free agent in 2026. This is a big year for Dylan Parham because if he plays well this year, he's going to get paid. If he doesn't, then he's going to have to probably sign a prove-it deal somewhere. So would you prefer Dylan Parham, who's been basically an average guard, or Alex Kappa, who's coming off of a down year? You read out his advanced numbers from PFF. What I will say about Alex Kappa is keep in mind what was going on with the Bengals. Right, that offensive line. I don't think most of those guys didn't play well last year. They also fired their offensive line coach, so that tells you it wasn't just the players. They felt like the coaching wasn't as up to par either. So that's why I'm willing to give Alex Kappa a chance to have a bounce back year. But I think the battle should be between Alex Kappa and Dylan Parham because I do think Jordan Meredith on the left side deserves a shot to start.
And you'll see both those guys, Kappa and Parham, at right guard in preseason, right? Despite Kappa's status as a veteran and all that kind of stuff, you'll see them because that is a question mark. And so to me, you got to understand, who's the hot hand going in, especially with Geno back there and what they're going to be able to do. So it'll be interesting to watch that. But another battle, and you talked about this because so many people are focused on that guard position and the offensive line overall. And they're still obviously making signings. We saw this. They're making signings when you look at Molly, the guy from Indianapolis, they signed Antonio Molly. So they're still bringing in players, which tells you, despite Kappa being a veteran and depending on left, right side, look, they have question marks. And you have to explore depth. How many times? It's not sexy to talk about it, Mo, but your second guard and sometimes your third guard rotational guy are vital because guys miss games. And if you're going to be a team that starts to push towards being a perennial playoff team, you have to have the depth.
You have to have depth. I saw someone shout out to Vinny Bonsi of the Las Vegas Journal say, we signed Jamal Adams. What about Jeremy Chin? What about Isaiah Polamau? And Vinny's like, it's nothing happened. They're starters. You got to have depth. It's not all about the 11 players on the field at one time. It's about the 50-man depth chart. And by the way, the practice squad. So remember the rules of the practice squad. Now you can have veterans on your practice squad. Before, it was usually young guys who hadn't played much. Now you can have 10-year guys on your practice squad. So you go back to Jamal Adams, right? Let's say Jamal Adams doesn't make the initial roster, but he could still be on your practice squad. So that if Isaiah Polamalu isn't playing well, or if Lonnie Johnson Jr. isn't playing well while Jeremy Chin plays in the slot, you can call up Jamal Adams.
Yeah.
Until you use up his eligibility. So it's not about the starters, just about the starters. It's about depth. It's about the practice squad. It's about that entire football team. You're trying to field the best team you can from top to bottom.
And I'm glad you brought up practice squad. That is, in essence, to me now, because there is no minor league in NFL football, but it's sort of like a minor league. Like you could, if you watch, and we have people who for some reason hate baseball. So when I use baseball analogies, they leave comments. It's really funny. But to me, that's what it is. Because in Major League Baseball, you might have a veteran and he's kind of at the twilight of his career or whatever, still can play, but doesn't make the roster. So they send him down to AAA. Well, that's what the practice squad is. It's like a AAA now, to your point about veterans being on there. So if you can go get a guy, and if Jamal Adams looks good, but he's not beating out those guys, yeah. I mean, it's awesome. And especially when it comes to that offensive line in positions where you have question marks, because you might need to make a change quick. And if you got a guy that you like there already, then at least you know him. He's been in the building. He's been in the offense, and he can come in and sub in or take the part of that position should you need it. So that's all good stuff. Mo, we got about a minute left before we hit the break. Real quickly, any other position battles that you're going to watch? I'm looking forward to the wide receiver battle. We've talked about that before. Anything else?
Wide receiver 2, and I would say defensive tackle if Christian Wilkins, assuming Christian Wilkins is not there. We talked about Quentin Jefferson. Who are going to be other guys alongside Adam Butler who are going to get the most snaps on the interior? Are they going to go with the rookies, Tonka Hemingway and JJ Pegues? Or are they going to sign someone like Ifotu, who they sign as a free agent? Who's going to step up and fill that void?
Yeah, I just want to know. I'm more excited about the long snapper battle. No, there's no long snapper battle. All right, we're going to step aside for our final break here on Silver and Black Today, Odyssey Sports Original Podcast. Also heard on the radio on 101.5 KDON in Las Vegas and the Bet HD2, both Odyssey stations. Don't go anywhere. We're coming right back. Had to read. Welcome back to Silver and Black Today, the home stretch here on this edition. We welcome you. It feels good. Yes, football season is here. They're in camp. Yeah, no games yet. And I know the preseason sucks. It just does. It sucks from the perspective of it's not that fun to watch. But even just to have football on TV that you can put in the background beats not having. So there you go. Scott Branson, Mo Moten, we're back with you. We're talking Raiders football on this Odyssey Sports Original Podcast, also heard on the radio, 101.5 KDON in Las Vegas, as well as the Bet HD2. Shout out to all the people in Vegas. And Mo, I got to tell you, too, a little tinge of sadness this week. 2 really visible people that I grew up watching, and there could not be more different than one another. We lost this week. We lost Malcolm Jamal Warner, a tragic drowning. And any of you who grew up watching The Cosby Show, he was like a brother, cousin, uncle, whoever, depending on your age. But just a terrible, terrible tragedy, accidental drowning on vacation with his family. Just brutal. So my prayers go out to him and his family. And then Mo won't relate to this one, I don't think, because you've never mentioned Black Sabbath. But Ozzy Osbourne passed away, 76 years old. I'm not making fun of him. That's just how he talked. But grew up watching him. As you guys know, I'm a big rock guy, big guitar guy. So Ozzy Osbourne. So we lost those 2. And Mo, I'll tell you what, man, I know you're several years behind me in age, but as you age, all this, you start losing people like this. And yeah, I mean, obviously we lose people in our family, which is a bigger deal. But man, culturally, just like with athletes too, all my big heroes growing up, most of them are gone now. And yeah, I'm older. I'm in my 50s, but man, it's hard. And I think the Malcolm Jamal Warner, even my daughter, because my kids, we've always been a Cosby house as far as the Cosby Show goes. And so even my daughter, who's 28, was impacted. It's like, oh man, so just a tough one.
Yeah, when you grow up watching, even though you don't know these celebrities, obviously, but when you grow up watching them
Yeah.
consistently, it's kind of like they're in your home, right? So
Yeah.
you kind of welcome them into your life, and you get used to seeing them on TV. So, especially at a young age, Malcolm Jamal Warner is early in the 50s, passing away, as you said, in a tragic accident. Kind of hits home for you. And I remember I actually called my mom and was like, "Hey, did you hear about this?" Because Cosby, the Cosby Show was on all the time in my household growing up. So prayers to his
Absolutely.
family.
Yeah, it's a great show. Despite the stuff that happened with Bill Cosby, we still watch it. I mean, I have 3 boys in high school still at home, and we watch it all the time, right? Because it's such a great example of, I think, the family dynamic. And Malcolm Jamal Warner's character in the Cosby Show, I always appreciated because even as a teenager watching it, I could relate to him because he was aloof like me. We go through that stage of life where, and you're sometimes clueless at times, and then sometimes you're brilliant. So it was always related to that, and I always related to that, and just a sad week for that. So a shout out to him and his family and prayers for everybody involved. And we're going to get now into one of our favorite parts of the show, and that is the Raider Nation switchboard. Yes, you can call in and be part of the show. 702-900-7869. Also, Mo, we've had a lot of questions about when we start increasing the number of episodes, and we will do that as we get closer to the start of the season. We'll get onto a regular schedule, as you guys know. Usually we do Tuesday, Thursday, Sundays, and then we mix in a Wednesday now and then as well. So we'll see that. Of course, Mo and I's schedule is incredibly busy, but we love it. And we love you guys wanting more of the show, and we will give you that. We'll also do a bunch of different things this year. We'll get some more interviews. Summertime, we don't do a ton of interviews, but when we get back into the season, we do that. Also want to give a shout out to our good friend, Jesse Merrick. Mo, I sent you this post yesterday. Jesse announced he started his own Raiders focused content production. It's called Silver and Black Network. And some of you might think, well, isn't he a competitor? No, we're all in this. We all have friends that do other Raider shows. There's plenty of stuff to go around. There's different flavors. It might not be mint chocolate chip in most case.
I hope not.
I don't know. Maybe people call our show mint chocolate chip. I don't know. But anyway, there's a lot of different flavors out there for you, whether it's Murph and the guys on Raiders Fan Radio, whether it's the Raiders official stuff, whether it's now Jesse's new project. Doesn't matter. There's plenty of room, and there's plenty of different. You get to hear different opinions. Jesse, I'm just excited, Mo. And you mentioned this in a text message back to me. Jesse's been there. He's been covering the team in the locker room. He's still in Vegas, which I am not. I haven't been in Vegas now for 4 years, but he's going to be that, I think, insider we've lacked, right? And we'll get him on the show here to talk about what he's doing because I think it's pretty exciting. But congratulations to him.
I love to see independent journalists doing their thing in this space simply because it gives I want to say it gives example for others to go out and start your own podcast.
Absolutely.
Start your own Substack if you want to write. Whatever the case is, you can go out and do it on your own. Jesse's been in with mainstream media. Now he's doing it on his own. I'm starting to see a lot more journalists follow that pathway because you control your own career, your own destiny, so to speak. No one can shuffle you around because it is your product.
Yes. And he's been a news anchor on TV for years at NBC in Las Vegas. So his transition to video and his own streaming stuff is going to be great. Good looking dude, young guy. He's got that red hair, the kind of Andy Dalton of Raider media. I'm going to call him that. I'm going to text him that too, see what he says. But we'll get him on pretty soon to talk about what he's doing. I think it's subscription based, if I remember. So it's going to be fun. And I can't wait to watch and see what he does there and get him on the show for his insight because he's really insightful. He played football in college. So he was a wide receiver. So it's good stuff. Anyway, congratulations to him. All right, let's get to the calls, Mo. First up, we have our man, the man doing God's work. He's officially, I'm going to just call him this. I've never said this. He's officially our chaplain here on Silver and Black today. And that is Brother Mike behind bars. He is Pastor Mike. Here he is.
Scott, Mo, it's Pastor Mike behind bars. It's been a while. Just wanted to kind of touch base. Been watching the show and listening to, like your top 10. Of course, Mo and I are completely in sync when it comes to top 5 quarterbacks in Raider history. We got it right on the button. And, of course, Stabler, LaMonica, Plunkett, Gannon, and Carr. Yeah, there we go. Okay, I got it. Yes. So, yeah, absolutely. There's a couple other things I want to talk about. Tarek had mentioned you can't replicate Oakland. I would totally agree with him. I'm a fan that has been in all three stadiums, L.A., Oakland, Vegas, and yeah, you'll never be able to replicate Oakland. But I do want to say that Allegiant is obviously the best stadium that the Raiders have ever played in. I do believe that they can get home field advantage. Eventually, they just have to start winning, and I think that they can start doing that. I think they're on the right track with Spytek and Carroll, and building this team and building a winner. I think we're going to see things happen, and I think you'll see that home field advantage change, a bit. There'll always be opposing team fans because Vegas is a destination city, and that's just the way it is, and we just have to accept that. But you'll never replicate Oakland. I was in the dark side end zone. Those were my season tickets in Oakland. Loved them. 6 rows back in the end zone. It was great. Now I'm like 400 level in Vegas. So, it is what it is, right? Because I'm a poor Raider fan. I just want to be there. As far as wins, I think that one of the things I think you need to take into consideration, even though it's a small sample size, is Geno Smith's stats in a dome. And if you look at that, and this year the Raiders will play 12 games in a dome, so that bodes pretty well. But in 14 games, in dome games, Geno Smith has 30 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, 110.8 rating. And so, I mean, we're going to see him play well. I believe he's going to play well at home and in the other dome, stadiums. So I can see them winning 10 games. I think it can happen. And I am a homer, so that is, I bleed silver and black. But I believe that we can see them. I believe this too. I think the Chargers will probably dethrone the Chiefs as AFC West champs. But then they'll end up losing probably in the first round of the playoffs. So the Raiders have a shot. I think if we can just get the wild card, then it'll be great. So I'm looking forward to the season. I think it's going to be a good season.
Oh, Mike got cut off there. Pastor Mike, we're sorry about that. Well, how great are our listeners, man? He comes up with that dome stat with Geno. I didn't even look into that yet. And so, Mo, that's pretty cool because how much can Mo? You're much more of a numbers guy than I am. How much can you glean from that great finding from Pastor Mike?
You can actually glean a lot from it. I compared that to Jared Goff last year. Jared Goff is a very good quarterback indoors, and the Lions played a lot of their games indoors last year, and the Lions were the #1 seed. They're not going to get all those indoor games this year, and that's why I think the Lions are going to take a step back, and I said that last week. But the Geno Smith dome stat is something that I touched on during my Bleacher Report Lives, I would say a couple of weeks ago. And I also had a stat here. Geno Smith was completing 72% of his passes, over 72% of his passes in dome games. What I will say to add more context to that is football is a team sport, right? Quarterback has the most influence on the offense. So I'm with you, Pastor Mike. It bodes well for the Raiders offense and overall their team is scoring points with Geno Smith playing so many games in the dome, having a home stadium indoors. That's great for Geno Smith. You also have to take into account, though, again, team game. So Seattle, in my opinion, had a more complete team than the Raiders have now. So is the defense going to give up 35 points? Because Seattle's defense wasn't giving up 35 points when Geno putting up those numbers. So while the numbers for Geno Smith should be good, the Raiders' overall numbers have to be good. The sum of its parts have to be good as well.
What I like about it, though, to your point, Mo, is the fact that Geno Smith, because he like you said early on when they traded for him, he throws his touchdowns, but he throws his picks. Yeah. The difference here, though, is that stat to me is big because at least your offense he's not going to hurt you. The Raiders have been in a situation where their quarterbacks have severely hurt them in games because of turnovers. So that dome stat to me sticks out there too. and as does the completion percentage. Now you got to make sure you guys are catching the ball, which I think will be fine for the Raiders this year as well. So it'll be interesting how it all works out. But Pastor Mike, great stuff. Okay,
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that was just phenomenal. So thank you. All right, I think we got time for about one more call. Here is a new caller, Terry. He's got a little bone to pick with us, Mo. Here he goes. Here's Terry. Oops. Terry will at some point talk. Here he is.
Yes, my name is Carroll Houston. I'm calling from California, Porterville to be exact. The question is whether Mo and yourself are Raider fans, or are you just commentators like some of the other reporters that just cover the Raiders? Because many times I feel like you guys are always operating glass half filled. And this is for the season start. I've seen teams with major injuries get 10 wins. The San Diego Chargers are a perfect example with Joey Bosa and et cetera, but you guys always operate on a glass half full. And so I'm wondering if you're real Raider fans and do you live in the Las Vegas area or California?
All right, there's Terry. Some interesting questions there, and I'll start out, Mo. So Terry, two things. One is we're not in Las Vegas. I lived in Las Vegas for a long time. When this show started, I was in Las Vegas. I covered the funding, the construction of the stadium, the Raiders' first seasons there as well. Mo's been a longtime Raider fan, living in New York, where he does business. Obviously, he's part of Bleacher Report. But the thing is, we don't look at ourselves as a fan show. So I think you meant glass half empty. I'm just going to make that assumption. You said glass half full, which is more optimistic than pessimistic. So I'm just going with that. But the way Mo and I have always had the philosophy here is to take a more objective point of view. Whether we were fans or not doesn't really matter. What matters is we want to give you what's good and what's a challenge. What's good, what's a challenge. So you might look at it and your perception might be that we're negative or that we're glass half empty. But if everybody was telling you the same thing and was telling you that everything is awesome and that this team's going to win 14 games, would you really be getting the truth? We try to just give you our true feelings about it. And I don't think we're overtly negative on the show. I think that we try to bring some objectivity and squelch any personal feelings that we have or personal biases that we have. Mo, did I capture that pretty well? What do you have to add?
I'll add this. Grew up a Raider fan, as you said, in New York City. And as a sports fan, period, I grew up wanting the truth, to hear the honesty. I shouldn't say truth, because a lot of it is opinion, right? Before the games are played. I wanted to hear honest opinions about my football team. I didn't want to hear someone tell me every year, oh, your team's going to the playoffs and going to win 10 games in football, or your team's going to win a championship every year, and it didn't happen. Because then I get my hopes up only to get crushed. So I said, if I get in this position, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to give people honest opinions. And if that's not their cup of tea, then fine. Yeah. If they want to hear the optimistic side all the time, that's fine. But I'm going to do it this way because this is how I grew up. This is what I grew up wanting. And I know there are other people that want that too. I will say that if you've paid attention to the show, Terry, respectfully speaking, of course, if you remember last year, I said the Raiders would win 8 games. They won 4.
They won 4.
The year before that, in 2023, I said the Raiders would win 8 games and go 8-9. They win 8-9. The year before that, I said the Raiders would win 10 games and go 10-7. That was the year they acquired Devontae Adams. I was very optimistic that year. How many games did they win, Scott? 6 games under Joshua Daniels in his first year. So I've either been overly optimistic with my projections or in the same ballpark, if you've been paying attention to the commentary I've been providing. So I'm not here to wave the pom-poms. I'm here to give you my honest opinion on the Raiders. And hey, you can take it or leave it.
Yeah, and you know what? There's great pom-pom shows, including our brothers and sister at Raiders Fan Radio, right?
Right.
They take much more of a fan approach to it, which makes their show awesome.
It's fine.
Like when I'm a fan of my team, like I am a San Diego Padres fan, right? I am a Notre Dame football fan. when I go and search and listen to information or watch stuff on those teams, I want the rah-rah stuff. It makes you feel good and kind of like you're sitting next to your buddy at the bar. And then I listen to the stuff that's more objective to get more of the other side of things and to get kind of a right down the middle point of view. So, Terry, I appreciate the call, man. We hope you continue to listen because I think you'll see that we do cover it fairly. Like Mo said, if it's not your cup of tea, we understand that too, but we totally respect you calling in and sharing that opinion with us. So thanks on that.
And really quick, Scott, and I think we've been very optimistic about the Pete Carroll regime so far and what he's done. I've been totally on board with Chip Kelly being the offensive coordinator. Now, we don't think they're going to be a playoff team. That doesn't mean there's not optimism there.
No, of course
As I've
not.
said plenty of times, going from 4 wins to 7-8 wins is a significant leap.
Yeah.
Not every team takes that last to first jump, but doubling your win total, I think, is a pretty optimistic outlook.
Absolutely. Terry, thanks again for calling in. We appreciate it. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Silver and Black today, an Odyssey Sports Original podcast. We appreciate you guys being with us. And for those listening on the radio in Las Vegas, thank you again. 101.5 KDON and the Bet HD2 in Las Vegas. By the way, we have a little bit of an extended show. If you want to subscribe to the podcast, please do that for us. Go subscribe, rate, and review. And don't forget to leave your comments wherever you listen to the show. Wherever you get your audio, you're going to find us. Also, if you're watching us on YouTube, thanks for being with us. And for those of you who want to hear a little more, we got a couple more callers that you're going to miss on the radio. So make sure you go listen on the podcast. Mo, take care, my friend. We'll see you next week. All right. For Mo Moten, for our producer, Mike Robier, and for Mark Bonilla, our producer on the radio in Las Vegas, this is Scott Branson. This has been Silver and Black today. Have a great weekend, Raider Nation. Football's back. We'll talk to you next week. Okay. Now we'll do the other callers. We got 2 calls left. All right. Okay. We roll on to our next call and we go out to our buddy Yandog. Here he is.
Hey, Brother Scott, Brother Mo, Yandog. How realistic is Pete Carroll's goal of immediate success? Coach Carroll doesn't want to waste time, and what's your thoughts, Scott, Mo? He's trying to strive to make our Raiders a winning team in his first season. How realistic is his plan on paper? The offense should be good enough to give opposing defenses problems. Also, if Wilkins and Kuntz returns to full strength, that's going to, and with some of the rookies contributing right away, that would help. And outside of Ashton Genty, Dante Thornton and Jack Besh and cornerback Darian Porter should be very helpful. Scott, Mo, please give me your thoughts. Anyway, Yandog, over and out.
All right, there's Yandog. Mo, you talked about this beginning of the show when we were actually, I shouldn't say that. We were in a break and you and I were talking about the Pete Carroll stuff. And the reason I didn't play it on the show, I just didn't think he said anything tremendously interesting or out of the ordinary. And it's early in camp. But you said something that relates to what Yandog just said.
Right. So Pete Carroll is going to sell you the optimism. Pete Carroll's not going to get up to the podium and say, hey, we're going to take small baby steps. We're only going to win 6 or 7 games. And then next year, we're going to take the bigger league. That's not what he's going to say publicly on the microphone. He's going to sell you on, we're going to compete now. And I think the Raiders will be competitive, right? But being competitive and winning football games are 2 different things. I do think, as I said during the call segment, that the Raiders, during this call segment, that the Raiders will nearly double their win total. Now, Pastor Mike behind bar says they can win 10 games. And I'm not saying that's unrealistic because we're surprised every year by a team that, we didn't see that team winning 10, 11 games. Yep. The Washington Commanders last year, who saw them winning 12 games with Jaden Daniels. So there are surprises every year. So I will say nothing is unrealistic, right? Yeah. So it's on the table, especially when you upgrade at quarterback, when you upgrade your coaching staff. Yes, the Raiders can absolutely win 10 games. Will it be a difficult task? Yes, because they have some question marks. We talked about it. Offensive line, secondary. How do those 2 units pan out? If the Raiders get a fast start from both those units, 10 wins is very realistic. But if the secondary is weak and teams are scoring a bunch of points on them over the top, if the offensive line is average to below average, and Ashley Genty's not seeing the holes that he needs to see to break out big yards and chunk yardage on the ground, then you'll probably get more around a 500 team, 7-8 wins, which is where Scott and I think they'll be.
Right. And I always, again, me and my analogies, it's sort of like you hire somebody to do your kitchen and you say, hey, I really want this. Is this going to be a beautiful kitchen? And you say, well, it'll be an okay kitchen. Like nobody says that, right? They're going to say, to your point about, and there is real optimism. Don't get me wrong. And I know, Mo, you believe this too, because you just said it. There's real optimism. But real optimism and expectations can sometimes get out of line. And I don't think Pete Carroll said anything that should put unrealistic expectations on this team. He said they want to win quickly. And I believe him 100%. But to your point, Yandog, about on paper, Pete Carroll doesn't play right guard. He doesn't play safety. He doesn't play cornerback. Right? So those things all have to work out. And I agree with what Pastor Mike said earlier, because I've said that to me, their big ceiling would be 10 wins. If they got to 10 wins, holy crap, that's a great season for this team after winning 4 games. Now, the only time you hear a coach really sandbag is if you got a team that won 1 or 2 games, which happens less and less in the NFL now, and you were just brutal, you're the worst team in the league. Yeah, you're not going to come out and say, we're going to win quick, because everybody knows you're lying because you have too many deficiencies and all that. The Raiders are not that team. The Raiders are closer than that. So absolutely, I believe what he says. And again, I know it's reality and it takes away from the sky high optimism sometimes, but to double your wins would be amazing. To go from 4 to 8. I had somebody argue with me on YouTube, Mo, a couple weeks ago. Well, they only won 4, but it really should have been 7. I'm like, well, it wasn't 7. Really should have been. It means you lost the games. You lost the games. Really should have been if this. Well, if I was 6'5" and could jump, I'd play basketball. I mean,
Scott, if I got more sleep as a kid, I should have been 6'5". So I mean, you just got to factor that in.
Yes, both of your height challenge hosts here. So there you go. All right, Yandog, as always, my friend, we appreciate you. Thank you for calling in. And then we follow up with Yandog's partner in crime. That is our good friend Tarek from Chicago, who's texted me from, I think he's on vacation or business. I can't remember which one. In Denver, having fun with Broncos fans out. Here's Tarek.
Good morning, Scott and Mo. Greetings from Denver. Definitely in enemy territory. It's a beautiful, beautiful city. Crappy football team. In regards to you guys' last show, I think I can't fathom how anybody would think it did make sense for us to take Genty first overall. We were dead last in the NFL in rushing yards per game, so he's going to not only be a legit player for us. I expect nothing less than 1,200 yards rushing and 10 touchdowns, but he's going to open things up for everybody else. We'll keep defenses guessing about whether to focus in on the run, the pass. Regarding our linebacking core, I'm tired of Raiders having just terrible linebacking play for so many years now. And the arrow can only point up. I'm definitely intrigued by Roberts, Jermaine Pratt, Devin White, etc. Certainly not going to miss players like Diablo. I don't think Eichenberg makes the roster either. When it comes to our defensive backs, again, Trayvon Merrick, Nate Hobbs, Jack Jones, good riddance. If other people want to overpay for those guys, have at it. I'm again intrigued by Chin, Bennett, Porter, Stokes, Polamalu. Definitely, I think the arrow can only point up in that position and with that position group as well. Nobody, and I mean nobody, it's not even close, has butchered the first round, particularly when it comes to defensive backs, more than the Raiders. So at some point, we're going to have to turn the corner. I did pose a question last week, but I think I got cut off. So I wanted to ask you guys again. Nobody expects, I know the three of us agree that the Raiders will not be a playoff team this fall, but we should all be pissed off that the Chefs, Chargers, and Donkeys all made the playoffs last year. And just about every analyst and everybody who covers the NFL predicts that's going to happen again. I want to know if you guys both individually think that the Chefs, Chargers, and Donkeys will again be a playoff team, while we will, for the second consecutive year, be the only team in our division who does not make the playoffs. I think with Bowers and Genty, we clearly have the best tight end in our division and the best running back in our division. I will go ahead and already say that with regards to Genty. Hope you guys are having a great week. I will talk to you guys later. Looking forward to your next show. Over and out from Denver. Screw the donkeys. All right, guys. Bye-bye.
I love it, Tarek, calling us from Denver. Thanks for the call, buddy. Well, listen, I'm not, and I've said this the last 3 years, and I was wrong, obviously, last year. I'm still not sold on the Broncos because year 2 of Bo Nix, as much as I liked Bo Nix coming out of college. I liked him last year. I think did a good job after struggling a little bit at the beginning. I'm just not sure. Sophomore seasons in the NFL can sometimes be tough on guys and they can fall back. Denver got better in some areas too, especially. So I think there's a distinct possibility that, yes, all 3 teams could make it. But if I was to bet on it, and when we start getting into your picks, as you start to do that, we get into the season, you can tell me what your pick is. But I would be more comfortable betting on the Chargers and Chiefs making the playoffs, a higher percentage of chance of that happening than all 3 of them.
Right. If you heard Pastor Mike earlier say he thinks the Chargers are going to dethrone the Chiefs, I think I said that too early in the offseason. I think the Chargers are going to knock off the Chiefs and win a division. The Chiefs have won a division 9 straight years, I believe. I think the Chargers come up, and despite what Najee Harris blown up his face with a firework incident or whatever, they drafted Amari Hampton, so they're fine there at running back. I think the Chargers are built to be the physical team that knocks off the Chiefs this year. Denver, I'm with you, Scott. I'm a bit skeptical about Denver, and here's why, right? And I like Bo Nix a lot more than other people did too when he came out of Oregon. My issue with Denver is not their defense. Their defense should be pretty good. You know, they added Johnny Barron out of Texas. Get that. Their secondary should be elite. But I'm not overly impressed with their offensive personnel. I know they added Evan Ingram, but, you know, is he going to be able to stay healthy? Their wide receiver core is more mediocre than good. Cortland Sutton is still their best wide receiver. They bring in J.K. Dobbins, who you know is going to miss at least 4 or 5 games a year. R.J. Harvey's a rookie running back. How is he going to fit into the offense? There are some question marks about their offense as far as the skill players are concerned. Are they going to mesh well this year, as you know, with Bo Nix going to his second season? I have questions. I can see Denver winning 9 games and missing the playoffs, though I do think the Raiders, unfortunately, will finish 4th. I don't think it's a shoo-in that every other team makes the playoffs except the Raiders, because I do think, and this is I'm going to say this again, the Jacksonville Jaguars are my surprise team. I can see 2 teams in the AFC South, the Texans and the Jaguars, making the playoffs and making it harder for that 3rd team in the AFC West to get in. So remember, it's not also what about a team does in the division, but what are the other teams in the divisions doing? Did they get a lot better? Because if they did, then it can kick out a Denver team that was a 7th seed last year.
Right, and I know there's lots of room for skepticism, but you look at the AFC North, you got Baltimore, of course, who's going to be there. And I know everybody's down on Aaron Rodgers with good reason, but Aaron Rodgers with the Steelers, Mike Tomlin wins. And then you got the Bengals. If the Bengals can actually sign their draft pick and sign Trey Hendrickson with the offense they have and all that, that could be a team that sends 3 teams or the division that sends 3 teams to the playoffs. So again, you might see 3 teams in the AFC West that are at the cusp of the playoffs, at least 2 for sure, and then the 3rd right there. But again, you could win 10. I mean, it's crazy as it sounds. You could win 11 games and maybe not make the playoffs. Now, I think more than
really, that's the Seahawks. Scott, but the Seahawks last year went 10-7 and missed the playoffs.
Yeah,
so
right.
You got to factor that in.
It's tough on those streets. All right, Tarek, thanks for calling in. We appreciate it as always, my friend. Again, you can be part of the show. 702. I just moving. My brain's moving faster than my mouth. 702-900-7869 is the number if you want to be part of the podcast. We certainly appreciate it as well. Thank you guys for tuning in. Mo, my man, have a great week. Anything? I know you're spending some time before the season starts. And I, in fact, got asked by the guys at SportsNot, where I do a lot of video and editing and writing. And they said, hey, are you going to take a vacation before football starts? I'm like, yes. So I'm targeting mid-August. How about you? What do you do?
I'm targeting right now because by mid-August, I'm going to be in regular season form because Bleacher Report is restructuring their video content. So I'll be doing video shorts starting August 5th. And then I'll always do a post-game live show. I will do a post-game live show after every Raider game, starting with the preseason August 7th. They play the Seahawks. That'll be a late show, of course, if you're on the East Coast. like 1 a.m., but if you're in the West Coast, about 10 p.m. But I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to just my short break before we really get into gear for the preseason and then the regular season.
Yeah. Oh yeah, man. It's both daunting because the work gets crazy for us as you all know, but it's also exciting because it's what we love to do and it's football. So I'm excited to do that. And we're excited always to talk to you. Do us a favor, if you don't already subscribe to the podcast, do so. Rate and review wherever you listen to us. If you haven't watched us on YouTube, come join us. The chat there is off the hook. It's always good. And you can find us on YouTube, Silver and Black Today. Don't forget to not only subscribe, but also give us a thumbs up there and hit that notifications bell so you know when we have a new video as well. A lot of new partnerships coming up that we're excited to talk about when that arrives, as well as our schedule as we get closer to the season. So stay tuned for all of that. For our producer on the podcast side, Mr. Mike Robier over at Odyssey, for Mo Moten, I'm Scott Branson. This has been Silver and Black Today. Have a great week, Raider Nation. We'll see you next time. All right, there we go.